Welcome to the Serendipitous Rebel podcast. I'm Wendy.
And I'm Krystal. This podcast is for the adventure-loving, purpose-driven, action-minded, authentic, and rebellious entrepreneurs.
Just like us. And just like you, we are trying to figure shit out. So join us as we talk about business and life and everything in between. Hello there, and welcome to the next episode of Serendipitous Rebel. Hi, I'm Wendy, and I am here with
Krystal.
And today we are going to touch upon a subject that may be a bit controversial, maybe a bit raw, but nonetheless something that we feel really important about. And it has to do with sharing of personal views and how that impacts your business. Things have come up in this world recently
At a breakneck pace in the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's like every day there's something new. And it's interesting to see how entrepreneurs kind of like, what direction do they go in? And how does that fit in with their branding and their brand? I think we're going to talk about that. I think already my mind is racing. So this may end up being more of an awkward podcast than we usually do, just because I think we're speaking more from the heart and not from the notes. In the summer of 2020, I made an executive, or it wasn't an executive decision. I'm the only one making the decision, but I made the decision to respond after George Floyd was murdered. And I decided, where does Rebel on the Go stand? Because I am my brand. I am Rebel on the Go. Mm-hmm. I remember talking to other entrepreneurs. Well, what if you say something that pisses off a potential client?
Oh, my favorite was, you're a professional or a business. You shouldn't be sharing your opinions.
Yeah.
That came up once.
And I just realized that I don't necessarily want to work with people who I wouldn't want to share a glass of wine with after a meeting kind of thing.
I think what you're saying is, I don't want to work with people who have different political views. No, not necessarily.
No, not at all.
What it is, like, I will only work with Democrats. That's a big difference between saying that and saying, I don't want to work with neo-Nazis. I don't want to work with white supremacists. I don't want to work with raging assholes.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that was the thing. I think that we did this as well with Serendipitous Rebel. You sit down and you really think about core values. Mm-hmm. And core values for me, love is love. Science is real. Black lives matter.
A woman has the right to choose.
Save the environment. They're just kind of...
Climate change is real.
Yeah, that's the one. There was a meme that was going around that I took and I put it out there and I shared it with my email list. I shared it in my Facebook group and I got zero pushback, which personally made me very happy. And since that time, there have been a few people who have come across and just been like, yeah, don't take me off a list. And I'm like, that's a good thing because it allows us to really hone who our ideal client is. There's also the whole thing about sharing of personal information and sharing personal beliefs or personal thoughts that come up. When asked about this, my answer really is, do what feels right to you. We are under no obligation to share anything. Mm-hmm. Just because you own a business does not mean you have to share anything. That's even, are you a coffee or tea drinker? You don't have to tell people that. I'm a tea drinker, by the way.
Coffee.
We will never fight over the coffee machine or the tea kettle.
No.
I
think anymore, a company needs to have values and needs to have brand value. Your brand needs to have values. And mm-hmm. I think that you should not shy away from where you stand on certain issues. That doesn't mean that you are insulated from the consequences of your stance. You absolutely are not. There will be consequences to whatever stand you're going to take. However, I would much rather give clients the opportunity, or followers, not clients, followers, people on my list the opportunity to opt out and self-select out of the process. Because one, them clicking the unsubscribe link on my email that might have offended them because I wrote in there Black Lives Matter is a much better process than a super uncomfortable conversation where they say something racist in a discovery call and I have to set them straight and fire them as a client. It's just a much better working relationship. I think that when it comes to being political, and there's ways of sharing your beliefs without being an asshole. There's ways to do it professionally. There's a way to do it and there be no question about where you stand on the issue. But I think we actually had a really good question from a client in Costa Rica on our mastermind about on his website, should he put same-sex couples on his website, or do you think that's a turnoff? And I thought to myself, well,
who cares? I mean,
so it's like, really, well, what do you believe? Well, I believe love is love, and I believe it's perfectly okay. Well, then great. Then you should do that.
Because if it does turn someone off, do you actually want them as a client? Yeah. It's interesting about that because when you look at websites, are there people of different color? Are there different genders? What you put out there tells also a lot about who you are.
Does your brand represent any diversity? I think all of that's really important.
Yeah, I think it's really important, but it depends completely on who your audience is, who your ideal client is.
It's who your ideal client is.
Exactly. And who you are trying to attract. Who do you want your clients to be? If you don't want a diverse audience, then reflect your images that way. I know that with Rebel on the Go, and I think I'm speaking, I better be, oh, sorry. Don't just say that. That with Serendipitous Rebel, we very much want, I mean, it's like, oh, wow, who saw Clueless? Remember when she talks about bringing people to the party? The more people in the party, the merrier it is. I'm totally butchering it and it's not perfect, but nonetheless, I mean, believe the more people, that diversity and inclusion is what really needs to make the world go round.
Yeah.
But that may not be your thing. And you know what? That's your business.
And more importantly, it may even be something that you don't get super worked up about. Wendy and I seem to get worked up about a lot these days. So,
oh my.
And so if you are a personality and your ideal client does not have strong opinions about certain things one way or the other, it may not be something that you consider. And that's fine. This is more of the podcast for people who are on the fence, who are like, I really believe this and I want to share it, but I'm afraid of alienating other people. My question would be, why? Why are you afraid of alienating that person? And it was the question that came up in our mastermind adventure, where one of the participants said, I'm just afraid of alienating somebody or having negative pushback. And here's the thing, guys, trolls be trolls. There are people out there who are going to troll what you have to say. We experienced it online when the Black Lives Matter movement took a really big push in 2020 after the George Floyd movement, where I got into an altercation online with somebody who had pushback about, you're a professional and you should, this is a professional business page and we should just stick to the business. And I said, well, at the end of the day, I want my business to attract ideal clients. And at the end of the day, my ideal client believes what I believe, believes that Black Lives Matter.
That's actually not what you said.
Well, I said something way harsher. I said at the end of the day, though, my client is not okay with this situation. Yes. At the end of the day, my ideal client is outraged by the events of the world right now.
Yeah.
And again, I want to know that I want people to self-select out of the process long before they get onto my discovery call, long before we start working together, because we've had situations with businesses or people who we see things posted on social media and we say, yeah, we will never do business with that company because of what they have said.
That's right.
I think, again, that's good for me to know too, though it saddened me to have to opt out of that business relationship. At the end of the day, I felt so much more comfortable because how many times have we been, especially as women, How many times have we been in a room and something uncomfortable has come up in the conversation, but it's a business conversation and you risk losing the client because they've said something inappropriate? I've just total misogyny. And it's because I come from the world of the days of yore where guys were just complete assholes in corporate environment to women. And you just had to like, now I don't do this anymore, but in my early 20s, it was swallow my tongue and not say anything back out of fear of reprimand. I don't think I could do that anymore. I really don't want to get partway down of closing a contract with somebody or in a working professional relationship and find out in the middle of that you actually believe something horrific and we are completely out of alignment.
I also look at it that as coaches, one of the key parts of coaching is creating trust.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a very vulnerable, a very, I'm not going to say intimate because that, implies something inappropriate, but just a very vulnerable, very personal is the good word, personal relationship. Sometimes you can't overlook some things. And, so other times, you can overlook everything if you can have conversations that no one ever, in my world, everyone does not agree on everything. And that's fine because we're polite, we're respectful. And I think that's, but anyway, but in the business world as coaches, it's important to know that there's room for trust.
And it's really hard to coach somebody if you don't like them.
Oh, I think that goes absolutely without saying.
And at the end of the day, I can like a person if they vote differently for the most part.
Yeah.
I cannot like somebody if they're racist. There's lines.
Well, yeah.
And so I think at the end of the day, it's about really understanding what our company core values are.
Yes.
And confidently sharing those things.
Yes.
So that we give people the opportunity to self-select out before the rubber meets the road, because it saves actually both of us a really uncomfortable, really hard conversation. So will you get some negative pushback? Maybe. Social media is a hot freaking mess these days. But I think people can find a good reason to be vile about a lot on social media. I think of lipstick gate, of somebody telling somebody else, that doesn't look good on you. Well, okay, fine. There are trolls out there. There are haters.
She's talking about me. The lipstick gate.
The lipstick gate.
The lipstick gate. Yes. I did a live and someone critiqued my lipstick. That doesn't look good. You didn't. And I was like, oh, if that's all you got out of my message, my lipstick, we've got other, other. So anyway.
So
I just wanted to put that out
when
there.
Trolls exist and when people come back and say unkind things, we block them from our social media and we remove them, but we don't stop showing up and we don't stop sharing our message because somebody doesn't like what we have to say or how we look. Because again, if they don't like what we have to say and they don't like how we look, then they're not our ideal client anyway. And so there is a billion people in this world. There is no love lost when I have to remove or block one asshole from the conversation. And again, it is sometimes just about taking a stand.
I completely agree.
And silence can be interpreted as well, guys. And that's the other thing. I never want my silence to be misinterpreted as an agreement or as anything. And so if you don't speak on your own behalf, somebody will speak for you. And I never want that as well.
We live in an interesting world. We live in a different world. When we really get down to it, those of us who are service providers, what really differentiates us from the next guy who does the same thing we do is who we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's our personality, it's our beliefs, it's our values. And I have to say, life is short. Work with people who you really want to work with people who you're equally passionate about what you're doing and that you really like them, that you'd actually want to be friends with them if that was, if you ended up as neighbors or something like that. Realize that you can make the choices to share, not to share, to be vocal, not be vocal, whatever it is, it's definitely your choice with the understanding that people see you.
Mm-hmm.
People see you. People make assumptions, even if it's wrong. But anyway.
That's it for today, guys. That was our super uncomfortable conversation.
Yes.
And we've ripped that Band-Aid. So we'll continue the conversation as always in our Rebel on the Go Facebook group.
Yes.
And until next time, guys, have a great day.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating.
But only if you liked it. Otherwise, just keep it to yourself.
You can learn more about our upcoming masterminding opportunities on our website at serendipitousrebel.com.
And if you have topics you'd like to hear about, be sure to submit them on our website or DM us on social media.
Hey, see you next week. Bye.
Bye.